This is Leisha Holmes, and I'm your host on the Recruiters Recruitment Podcast. And I am so excited to finally have on our podcast this week somebody that has been part of my community, I think, coming up to about 4 years. And if you follow me, you must see me liking this person's post. But he's somebody that I've got the utmost respect for, not least because of the job that he actually does day to day, but also because he just seems to be a really optimistic and very valuable member of our community as well. So without further ado, I would like to welcome to everybody today, Bobby Banerjee, and he is the owner of Elev8 Training. Welcome to you today. How are you, Bobby?
Hello. Yeah, no, I'm psyched. I'm having my tonsils out next week, so this is my last bit of freedom. So
Oh my
yeah,
God.
no, looking forward. Yeah, looking forward to talking through the world of recruitment with you.
So you will be listening to this without your tonsils. That's just a crazy kind of milestone.
I will be listening to this with a tub of Haagen-Dazs or
Yes.
other ice creams are available.
But
but yeah, no.
I mean, if you don't mind me saying, that's quite a mature age to have your tonsils out.
Yeah, tell me about it. I'm not looking forward to it. I've got to do it at a hospital rather than anything else. It's just going to be
I had them out. What I thought was I had them out at 15, and I'm much older than that now. And I can still remember. I'll give you some tips off camera because I'm sure nobody wants to think about a tonsillectomy right now. Now there will be people, I can't believe it, that won't know who you are. They're living on a different planet. So please, can you introduce yourself, a bit about your background, and why you're here today?
Yeah, cool. So I'm Bobby, the owner and director of Elev8 Learning, and I try and stop recruiters from learning their own mistakes by learning from the mistakes I made as a recruiter. Because my starting point in recruitment was 2013. I came in 3 weeks later, my manager left, and essentially had the worst first year in recruitment. And so I've kind of vowed to make sure that no one has the same first year that I do, or certainly the people that I work with.
Why was it the worst first year?
I didn't do a deal for 8 months. I had way more hair than this. I tore most of it out. It was so kind of had managers having to come in because I was working in Birmingham. I had managers coming down from Manchester or up from London, and we hardly saw them. And to be honest, I was working on a difficult market as well. I was doing big data and analytics in 2013 when no one was doing it.
No one was doing it then.
It was a hard old slog, and only getting a couple of deals in your first year was really
they must have believed in you. Your leadership team, albeit it sounds like there was quite a lot of traction, and maybe that's why did you slip through the net? I don't know. But joking aside, they must have seen something in the Bobby then.
And I think that's why I have the approach that I do now, because I think some people click in recruitment earlier rather than later, or vice versa.
Yeah.
And so I think my click happened certainly beginning in that second year where you just have that light bulb moment. It goes, actually, I'm overcomplicating these things. Let's have a consistent process and build out. And so essentially, from the training that I provide and coaching that we do is essentially learning from that mistake and going, how can I help you as a recruiter get to understand that actually it's a process. It's it's something that you've got to have consistently, which then breeds into, I can imagine you talk about lots of these, and I know you do because I've seen your posts, things around diversity and actually looking at inclusive recruitment models, because actually you're just asking the same questions over and over again, rather than thinking I need to rely on gut feel or certainly I feel like I need to ask questions like they're my mate, which could actually be counterintuitive, even though you're having a great conversation and, dare I say, ramping up those phone times.
Yeah, without a shadow of a doubt, just ringing the same number over and over again. I do just want to pick on something really, because you said a word, and I don't think it was a throwaway word. And actually, as we record this back into January, I actually shared a post about it, about this fact. Recruitment isn't rocket science. Recruitment is a process. And I think why so many recruiters struggle, and if you're listening to this now and you're in your first, second, third or whatever, and you've had a difficult 2023, it's been a more challenging market. Are you actually having a challenging time because your market's difficult, or is it because you're not actually following your process? And I think simplifying it, just have that in your head, thinking simplifying, that does not mean cutting corners. That does not mean following a process. It just means you're taking things step by step. And if you do that, then this will happen. If you do that, then this will happen. And I just think the way you said that then was so beautiful, because actually that's exactly what a learning person should be. You know, if you're going to educate people, it should be from, this is what I did, this is what I didn't do.
Oh, totally.
Ergo,
Totally.
joining in the middle.
Well,
this is
yeah, and that's a really important facet for us. So I've been lucky enough to hire someone who's also, you know, a cracking trainer in Shane, and we get on the phones ourselves because, again, whenever it comes to being able to deliver any particular training idea or methodology, standing there, and we've all been through it. Standing there, sitting there, learning theory is boring. But being able to then apply the theory in a way that really makes sense. And for me, it's about actually getting on the phone, allowing them to listen to me, being vulnerable myself, because unfortunately, there is always a stigma attached with training that it's actually people who fail to do it themselves. And so for me, it's more a case of trying to give that, I know it's always that stigma attached with all of these things. And so for me, it's actually going, luckily, I had a nice career when I was a recruiter. I was a 1 to 2 deal a month biller on perm. Average fees were 11-ish grand. So I was all right. I mean, lovely 20 grand months.
I was going to say, there's £250,000. Thank you very much.
Yeah, exactly right. And so for me, you know, I guess working in the S3 world, you're somewhere in the middle, and that's okay, because really it's about working out what you need to do to be consistent. And at the end of the day, you know, people tend to worry about, and this is a bit of a bugbear of mine, that whenever you come into any business, you're told to speak to like the top biller on the first day. That top biller has completely forgotten what they did in their first year.
Yeah, of course.
In the nicest possible sense of the word. And so now their life is a lot easier because they've got 7 or 8 accounts and they're nurturing those and developing those accounts. Whereas these people that come into recruitment don't really know the hard yards that it really takes to get from here to there to then be able to get to those levels. But
it's actually a really good point, because if someone came and watched me, I've been doing recruitment 25 years, I've been doing rec 20 odd years, and if I get a candidate, I know I can place them, like, don't even have to think about it, and I can do it with a ratio of 1 in 1.2 or something ridiculous. So basically, they'll go for one client because I'm so ninja about it. But it's taken 20 odd years to get to that point. Everything's inbound. So if you watch me, I'm not going to do any cold calling because I don't need to do cold calling. But if you'd have seen me in the first 6 years of my job, I was there. It's following KPIs, following structure, and the KPIs were, you know, to get 10 interviews in a week, to get 10 jobs on a week. It was, you know, usually around the same numbers, to get 3 send-outs per candidate, to get however many 5 interviews, whatever. I can't remember. They probably weren't far off that, actually, in order to get the 15 grand a month, right? And I did that, and I think this is what I'm trying to say, that if you, I mean, I want to come back to high performance in a minute, actually, because I think that's generally people that listen to podcasts want to elevate themselves. And I like the pun.
Cheers.
I know, little dig there. But I think you're right, and actually most people go, yeah, go and sit with the top biller. But you're right, that has actually never been said before about top billers, that they've reached that point where they probably can't understand the mechanics of what got them there, or the person that sat there is probably so overwhelmed or doesn't really understand that it's the nuances and the different flair that you have when you get to that point where you are the top biller, but breaking down each part of the process. And I love the fact that you are still hands-on. And I do just want to make the point, and then we'll move on, I promise, that I don't think for 1 minute anybody looks at, you know, Pep Guardiola at Man City and go, oh, he was a failed footballer.
No,
I am not having it.
But you've hit, yes, but funny enough, you've hit on something. Yeah, you wouldn't look at Pep Guardiola, but then that's why someone like Diego Maradona really struggled with management, because he was such a genius and he did his things his way that no one else could replicate it, and he wasn't able to codify what he did, because what he's done, what Pele's done, what all these incredible players have done can't be coded down. There's a genius factor there. Yeah. And the only person that's close to a real top performer that is also a good manager and trainer is probably Zinedine Zidane and Pep Guardiola. So it's actually looking at behaviors of the right people to put in the right places. And I don't know about you, but I think that's where I noticed recruitment companies can fail when it comes to their internal recruitment.
What do you mean?
Not using what they're looking for and how they assess what they're looking for are two very different things.
Yeah.
So you might be told, and I'm using you as a rec-to-rec example, funny enough, as one of the trusted ones I like. You'll be given a brief to find us people with, you know, drive, ambition, all those kind of wonderful things. And people could show you that in hypotheticals, in whatever way they want to. But how can they demonstrate that before they start?
Yeah.
And normally a conversation down a pub does not cut it.
No.
And so how we look at the internal recruitment process is really important. And funny enough, that's something that I'm working on, and it's probably a conversation we need to have another time anyway.
Yeah,
But it's
definitely.
around, but the idea is, being able to look at the right behaviors, the right characteristics for different roles.
Yeah,
And I don't think we
absolutely.
do it enough,
No.
which is why we have the churn rates we do.
We do, and as an industry, I mean, I don't know how they compare to other sort of sales-led industries, but I know that attrition has always been the sort of poison chalice of recruitment, and that's down to what you've just highlighted there. That there's always been a disparity between the behaviours that we think we want. How do you measure those behaviours, and actually what we need? And I think it's very challenging. And I'm saying this as a rectorate. I think it is very challenging. Apart from anything, from a mindset point of view, we love to be sold to because we love to sell. So I think it's really hard to assess and establish. And I think that your role as a trainer, whether it's, and I do want to talk about this actually, I might come on to this next, that sort of whether you have somebody permanently in a business as a trainer, or whether you come in and you are an outsourced, external, objective set of eyes to come into a business like, as an NED would, and say, right, well, this is where your challenges are. This is what you're doing well. These are the areas that you as a leadership team have to put into place, and then this is what can then cascade down. Yeah. And I think, generally speaking, there's just disparity that none of the parts are talking together. So what can we just focus on that first then? Because a lot of leaders listening know that they need to do better with their learning and development strategy. And, a lot of reasons why people leave companies is because they're not being developed. Is that usually people leave companies because of leadership or therefore lack of?
Yeah. And so McKinsey sorry to cut over. McKinsey have come up with a study around why people leave jobs in the last 10 years. And you'd have thought it's about pay and compensation, but actually it's about purpose of work and progression. Yeah. Weirdly. And so people now, and I do a lot of research into, I mean, this could be a whole other podcast, Leisha, around Gen Z versus millennials versus Gen X. And actually, I do quite a lot of research around those things. What motivates people now is essentially, I guess I'm classed as a geriatric millennial because I'm early 80s born. And so what we want from the world of work is very different to what people in the generations before and the generation afterwards want. Yeah. Actually, it's about navigating those things and being able to not say, oh, well, this is the way we've always done it, which I think is a cancerous term in
absolutely.
Or in business in general, actually. But then being able to look at, what behaviors do we want the right people to have? Sure, if we want that BD element to it, we can work on that, create an interviewing pathway to be able to assess whether that person could do business development or has the passion for it. Yeah. But yeah, as far as looking at an in-house versus an external partner, I'm going to be contentious. I'll probably do myself out of work here, and I know it's different strokes for different folks. I think it depends on where you're at as a business and whether you feel like spending 50 grand, 60 grand on a body without actually having gotten any responses. Because as you probably know from people who say, oh, we need to hire an L&D person. Right, who does this person need to be? It's either someone who's been in the role as an L&D person, which then means they should have been a recruiter for some years. So therefore that you're not looking at those 20, 25K people, which some people still advertise for L&D people.
Oh my God.
Or 30 at a push. I started 10 years ago on 35 with a 40 up to 40K bump. So now, given inflation, you're probably looking at 45 grand. Yeah. Plus pension, plus benefits. Ideally, you're looking at 60, 70 grand. So if you can't afford that 60, 70 grand on a person plus the 30 grand of output, then that's where you work with someone who can kind of come in. It's a bit like using a permie versus a contractor, right?
Absolutely.
And so our job, so funny enough, we've literally just come off a call where we've spoken about this, is to be the like fractional. Everyone talks about fractional this, fractional that. To be the fractional L&D partner, to go, well, actually, you could have our time. What do you want us to achieve in that time?
Absolutely. That's the way it should be.
And that's it. And so up until the point where they feel comfortable to be able to hire someone or be able to transition someone over from, because I made that transition over. I was a recruiter at S3 at Computer Futures. and then became a trainer. But I was a trainer before I was a recruiter, as we were saying off air. And so for me, there is that transition that could be made, but there's a learning process that has to happen, because it isn't just this is how you make a phone call. It's actually getting to understand the learning processes behind it all. I know this sounds, potentially overcomplicated, but it's actually getting to understand how people learn and
Yes,
then
of
be able to
course.
deliver training in a way that works for them. I love to learn by doing. Fine. Some people learn by seeing or hearing things, and you've got your visual or kinesthetic and auditory listeners, and you've got to work on it. And you've got
Yes,
to
you
really
do.
try and find out. And my job has been, yes, to teach people how to recruit, but also how to teach people how to learn properly or implement learning strategies. So with the customer I've just gotten off the phone with today, we've just said, like, right, a couple of days a month, we're going to work on processes within your business.
Yeah.
And funny enough, that's where a good L&D partner will hopefully help you
It's
with
not
all
just
the
one
DNA of the business,
dimensional,
not
it's
just coming in, delivering training and fucking off.
buggering off, which some people
Which
think that's maybe what the perception is by some. If I think about, and I'm not throwing any clients under the bus here, but there are some,
yeah,
there's
totally.
definitely a contingent of people who have been top billers, they've set up their own company, they've grown it, that's all great. And then when I'll ask them in my capacity as a director at my day job, what training and development do you provide? Well, we do it all here. And it's like, well, that's great for some of it, because they're going to be learning from you as a high biller. But you're not a trained trainer. So how are you actually developing that coaching capability? And they're just going to hear the same thing over and over again. It's like an echo chamber, isn't it, really? I mean, that's
It
downside.
becomes groupthink, it becomes an echo chamber, and more importantly, what do they really learn?
I know.
And it's actually trying to get people to think, because unfortunately, last half of the year, or certainly last quarter of the year, not easy for recruitment businesses. Lots of
Yeah.
conversations around, we've not performed as well as we want to.
Yep.
So, funny enough, you choose one of two options at that point. Either you double down on business development training and that kind of thing, or you cut your losses and go, oh,
Yeah.
our costs need to be shelved, so we
Yeah.
won't work with it. And so, funny enough, the people, and again, this isn't a tactic in any way, shape, or form, but funny enough, the people that double down on their business development when times are hard are the ones that perform better than the people that go, actually, we don't want any training or coaching in that thing, because funny enough, we'll be able to do it ourselves. That it probably speaks again to the low barrier to entry that we have in our, it's the low barrier to entry that we have in our
It
industry,
is
that we think
true.
that we don't need to be specialist in anything to become a specialist,
Yeah.
which is
No,
frustrating.
we can just wing it, and I don't think so. I want
Yeah,
to just
well, we've all fudged, we've all winged one
winged it. We're all
building a
winging it.
business.
We're
Yeah,
all
yeah, we're all
winging it,
winging it,
dear.
but it's applying bits and pieces that you can know that are quick wins by being able to work with the right people.
Yeah. Speaking of the right people, you will, in your
Ooh.
capacity, both as a recruiter and as a trainer, you must see the traits of what makes what we would call a high performer. So whether that's down
Totally.
to revenue or behaviors, how do you spot, and how do our leaders listening, and also those who might be this person, how do you spot a future top biller?
Right. Oh, that's a fantastic question. Where do I go with this? So, funnily enough, I'm working on a recruitment toolkit to be able that has mapped this all out. So
Okay.
hopefully I'll be able to give the secret sauce of this. So it's looking at the composite behaviors that we think are right for a recruitment business. And I think first and foremost, it's defining that right competency, because to you and I, communication skills for some businesses will be just being able to write half decent emails and being able to speak proper like. However, for other businesses, like I worked with an exec search firm down in London who were very much working in the city. Their ability was more around how to be, communication skills, was being able to deliver whilst being almost invisible. And how do they go about that? As in because they're working as exec searches,
So
headhunting,
covert,
so
right? Okay.
covert, or being able to negotiate in a particular way with defense clients is their
Yeah.
version of communication skills. So defining
Okay.
what you want from that competency is important. Resilience seems to crop up. What is resilience? Is it just being able to come back tomorrow after having a shit day today?
Yeah.
Or is it learning from those mistakes and being able to apply those things? So ideally, what I've seen make great recruiters recruit, a lot of the top billers that I've seen didn't get it straight away. weirdly. I don't know why, but I don't know why that is.
So it took time for it to click, you mean?
Yeah, it took time to click.
Right. Interesting.
A lot of them have a purpose that resonates beyond just making money.
Yeah, I hear that.
To
I hear that
start.
from other people have asked this question too.
Yeah.
They've got like a greater passion or a greater vision.
Yeah, well, again, the
Mm.
millennial workforce is all around greater purpose. If you can tie in any goal, any task, any activity to a thing that is greater than just doing deals, making money, because yes, we care about that, but that's not the be all and end all.
No.
I got into recruitment because I'd spent a long time at university, racked up a whole load of debt, and my real purpose was to be able to get out of my student overdraft.
It's good enough reason.
Yeah, exactly. That was my purpose. If your purpose is a Mulberry handbag, absolutely fine.
Definitely not. Mine's being able to bring food to the table as a solo parent.
Yeah,
but no,
exactly,
joking
yeah,
aside,
exactly.
everybody has their own reason.
Everyone has a reason that is beyond their desk. Yeah. And so how you can get that, I mean, one of the best recruiters I've seen, he's actually part of a group of amazingly talented, successful people, and he was the least successful one at the time. Others were footballers, owned really successful businesses. He'd only just started out in recruitment. And then weirdly, in 7 years, his purpose has now achieved what he wanted to achieve. So it's that big driver. Another thing that I look at, certainly that I always try and spot, is being able to learn from mistakes.
Oh, without a shadow of a doubt.
We as a species learn most when we have messed up.
When we've screwed up, it's totally true.
Yeah, absolutely. You're a parent. You had kids at a certain age that you probably had to say, don't touch the radiator.
Yeah, of course.
And you can tell them until you're blue in the face to not touch the radiator.
And they've got a red band.
And they're doing that. And the worst part is they're doing that thing going and looking at you each time. Just go on then. And it's always like, go on then. And it's essentially, how do they learn from those things? Because that's how we learn. We learn from mistakes.
Yeah, it's true.
God, and that means I had to make a whole load of mistakes to be able to learn from.
But it's true, and I actually want to pick up on a point you said there about resilience. I like the word fortitude, because I think that you can say you're resilient, but resilience only takes you so far without the learning. And for me, that's what the difference is with fortitude. That you've shown that you are so strong and you're self-aware enough to say, well, and we're talking about it in a work context, that call didn't go so well. I didn't get that placement because this happened. And it's learning how and why, and then what could I have done differently? I think asking yourself that question, I was a top biller and I placed loads of top billers. That is asking that question, what could I have done differently? What more could I have done? What more could I have done in that process? And I think the top billers are the curious ones. They're the inquisitive ones that aren't afraid to. I think there's this kind of misconception that they're the big balls walking around the office, and actually they're not. They're probably learning.
Brilliant.
They're
Yeah, I think certain people that have that mindset will reach a certain level. I've seen it happen time and time again, and it's usually in those kind of STEM recruitment businesses. The person that's Mr. or Miss or gender indeterminate big balls generally tops out at that 5 to 7K bracket.
Yeah.
The people that have a genuine understanding and a genuine, as you write, I don't know whether you've seen Ted Lasso or know the quote by Walt Whitman, be curious, not judgmental. If we can actually understand or get to a point where we understand what the real thing is. Another thing that I find as a real success kind of it expedites success quickly is understanding the problem you solve.
Yeah.
Because what we generally tend to think is that we need to sell a CV, look at skills. This person's got C#, ASP.NET for 5 years and have worked for Deutsche Bank, and that should make them good. But but what we should really be seeing our people as, and you probably agree with this from the Rectorec side of things, it looks like return on investment.
Yeah.
If you spend 40 grand on this person or £1,000 a day, this is the return on investment you will get. But we don't do it enough. We're still selling on the phone, just saying, hi, I've got this candidate. I think they'd be a great fit because they've got these skills. And so, and the worst part is you've got 32,000 other agencies. And I dread to think how many actual recruiters there are in the UK. I say if there's 10 per company, you're probably looking at 300.
There's a lot. There's at least Yeah, there's at least 250,000 recruiters in this
Right.
country.
And if they're all saying the same thing and your clients are getting the same conversation each and every time, why the hell would I work with any recruiter?
Of
And why the hell would
course.
I then work with one that's trying to say I want 25%?
Yeah.
So you've got to be able to, so the people that understand how they solve that problem,
Yeah.
you know, understanding the time, quality, cost factors of projects in their market, being able to understand how the kind of job roles fit together and dovetail nicely on projects, being able to understand a client's roadmap, super important.
Mm.
And the quicker we get people to learn that, the quicker that, you know, they need to make less calls to do well.
Absolutely, which goes back to what we were saying before about the actual observance of a top biller. That's why they're making probably less calls, but the calls matter, and the
Totally.
content of those conversations will be around the value. It will be around solving the client or the candidate's pain point. That's what we're talking about here. It's not transactional.
Yeah, because I'm guessing you've spoken to Mike Ames before. Yeah,
yeah,
we had him on one of our webinars, and he just talks about what is the grit in the eye.
yeah.
And that's resonated with me to be able to deliver to other people. That it's about looking at those challenges, those problems. You know, the word consultant is almost the most redundant word in job titles in recruitment.
Well,
Which it might be harsh. I don't know, but
it's undermined by a lot of people that call themselves consultants, but they're not very consultative. And I'd like to
totally.
think that anyone listening to this is not in that bracket, because you are trying to learn, you're trying to develop your skills,
Yeah, fair play.
you're wanting to step out your comfort zone.
So if I look at that word, well, what does it take to be a consultant? It takes a knowledge base. It takes inch wide, mile deep knowledge of
Yeah,
whatever it is you do.
yeah,
It's the ability to take what you're asking me to do and communicate it in a way to give you 3 or 4 options for you to choose a way forward.
yeah.
And yet we don't do enough of it.
No.
We're still clinging to trying to sell that one candidate to that one company in the hope that we go for it. And
Yeah.
look, you know, at no point would I ever say that there are, we could talk about business development till the cows come home. And that's probably, again, a conversation for another
Different
time.
podcast.
Yeah, totally. But it's about being able to work out where your skill sets apply and how you can manage things. And again, another podcast could be all about 180 versus 360, and that's a whole other thing.
Oh, that's a whole different ballgame. But I mean, look, don't be dogmatic. You know, if you are somebody that is so fixated on something, you almost, and I've seen that happen a lot, where it's almost like you're having a battle, and that's not the right way to go about it. And you know, I love concentrating on those behaviours. I really do. So if we're still talking to the potential future high billers and top billers, how do we know whether our employer or future employer, if we're on the job market, it has got a good development and training and development culture? How do we know that it's good? They might be telling us it's good.
Well, beyond working with us, no kidding. Yeah, no, I think if you're spotting things, the question we've got to ask is, what are you going to do to look to help me get better at the job?
Yeah. Okay.
So in essence, if I was going into or certainly if you were going to go into it, looking at it, going, well, why should I work with you? It's what we tell our you know, our candidates to tell their potential future employers.
Yeah, yeah.
So why not do the same ourselves and go, well, actually, what is it about your business that actually looks after people? What is it about it that means that I'm going to get better at what I do? Because the problem is in lots of people's businesses, if you're not learning and you're not earning, that's why people tend to move.
Yes.
And
I love that expression.
Yeah, it's so useful. It's probably why I've moved the way I have, because I've always looked at it and gone, am I learning anything? No. Well, then I probably need to move up a point. And it's just the way forward. So if people have a clear plan of action around what they're going to do to make sure that you are onboarded properly. Oh my God, onboarding plans are interesting. Because some people do them, a lot of people don't. You know, trained properly, but it's about the continuous learning as well.
Of course it is. That's what I'm talking about, this learning
I'm working
culture.
I'm working with a lot of businesses around what they can do to implement little learning practices that then mean that their people are heightened. So even little things like candidate pull aparts, where a manager will work with a team that are looking to take people to market and say, present me your best candidate. Why are they worth sending to some of our clients? And everyone does it to each other, and then they pick little pieces away from it, what they could do well, what they could, you know, what they could ask more, and then that becomes the learning process. And it's a lot learner led. you don't necessarily need me to come in
And
full
do that.
time to deliver.
Yeah.
It's about,
But it's creating a strategy where that's what you're doing, where you're learning
totally.
from each other, and where it's fun.
Totally.
It sounds really good fun. It doesn't sound arduous. It sounds like we're actually all going to get something from it.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of training happens just because it needs to tick a box.
Yeah, no, I know.
And
Well, I'm definitely with you on that cynicism. I think that's
yeah,
true.
you know, we'll do DE&I training because it's DE&I month, and we need to, and it's Pride, and we need to rainbow wash our business. Again, that's a whole other thing.
Don't get me started on that.
Yeah,
Before we go, I want to ask you around leadership, because a lot of our listeners are leaders, and I firmly believe, before I ask you the question, the answer to the question for me would be that the training and development mentality cascades down. So it should be, leaders should be trained. They should understand how to pick up on learning behaviours. So what would your advice be to those leaders listening in terms of them elevating their learning and development?
Yeah, totally. And I think there's, because what we've, we're generally around that junior, like the top that we reach is that kind of junior management coaching. Yeah. However, if you're a business leader, the one thing I'd probably look at is, how can I look to better myself? Because if most business owners don't know it all. No. As a business owner myself, I hold my hands up. I don't even know what a joint venture agreement is. And I need to work out what that is, or a limited liability partnership. But I need to navigate various things that keep me interested day in, day out. Good. With business owners, they've got to have the same mindset. No one is the finished article. Even Steve Jobs had a coach. Absolutely. Michael Jordan had Tim Grover. Yeah. And all these people, and you go to those high performance podcasts and all those Diary of a CEO. All of these people have someone in their life that they're accountable to, that they look at their performance and go, right, what else can I do to improve? If you don't have that within yourself, you will not have that within your company. No, it's true. It's that level of accountability. But we talked about self-awareness before. I think there's a self-awareness piece, and I had a guest on recently. Where we talked about one of the key things that he said is get yourself a non-exec director. It's like, if you are a leader listening, if you just have your own voice and you're not seeking that external advice, you're only as good as yourself. So I think it's having the different components. There are so many different options available. I mean, we could do a whole season of Bobby Banerjee, couldn't we? We could do like business development 360. I mean, like, God, we need to get you on again, don't we? But cool. I'm happy to.
It's flown this time.
Yeah, I did.
You've blinked and it's gone. There you go.
Yeah, I mean, the last point I want to make before we finish is,
of course,
are you I'm guessing with the Pep Guardiola comment, you're a Manchester City fan.
Obviously, I'm from Manchester.
Right.
Yes, I am. I'm a lifetime Manchester City fan.
Of course, you're not from London, therefore a Manchester United fan.
That's the little.
So you look at Erling Haaland. Erling Haaland is the highest performer in the highest performing club in the country. Mm-hmm. He still gets coaching every week without fail. He's not just leaving just because he scored the most goals in the Premier League last season, in his first season, that he's made it. He's the finished article. Yeah. He still looks at his misses. And when I knew and this is going to be I saw it first moment, when he missed an absolute sitter in the Charity Shield. Yeah. I think it's his first game for City. And the way he reacted to that made me realise that this is going to be horrible for the rest of the Premier League this season, because he just had that determination to go, I'm going to learn from that and I'm going to do better. And he's never forgotten it. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who you are. Everyone needs a performance improvement plan, including yourselves. And so how you go about that is really important. No, I'm really glad that we finished on that. I mean, great analogy. And I think you're absolutely right. I mean, as somebody who, 25 years in the business plus, got started in 98, I still invest in my coaching and development every year. I don't believe that I know everything. I've got a voracious appetite for podcasts for this reason. I mean, I must listen to at least 15 hours a week of podcasts. Not just recruitment, because that would be really boring. But, across the business world, nutrition, mindset, just... You can have such an eclectic, and you're listening to this now because you clearly have an appetite to learn and develop. So I'd love to know what you think of Bobby's advice. Please connect to him over on LinkedIn, because let's face it, that's where we all live. Yeah, totally.
And you have been absolutely brilliant, and I can't wait to meet you in person when we go. We're actually going. I'm going to say this now, so it's accountable. We are going to do our second ever live podcast event in Birmingham.
Oh,
So
perfect. Sign me up.
So
Sign
we'll
me up.
sign you up. Would love to see you there. And yeah, no, you've been. I know you've been the electric. Anybody that follows you knows that you are just a joyful person to know. So thank you for everything that you do for our industry, because you are
No worries.
training
Thank
our
you. You
future
do too.
talent. And you've made me feel really old today because I'm a Gen X. But anyway, I'm just going now. Thank you for joining us on the Recruiters Recruitment Podcast.